The latest Joe Mixon news, not great for the Houston Texans, but there's a little light at the end of the tunnel that would make this not the worst thing in the world. There's also a great chance that that light is a train ready to ruin a part of the Houston Texans season. Let's talk about it. Presented by my friends at The Perfect Gene. Check the link in the description down below to get the best jeans in the world and get yourself a discount and free shipping as well. So Joe Mixon is going to continue to miss time with this, what Ian Rappaport called a frustrating foot injury, and Mixon is going to be evaluated closer to the season for his availability. Now, the language here is a little murky. It doesn't say that Mixon's going to be back before the regular season. It just says he's going to be evaluated for his availability. That's probably the scariest part about the foot injury, is that he's going to have this foot injury that's kept him out of the offseason workouts, that's kept him out of the opportunity to be in training camp. He's on the non-football injury list, and he'll miss most of, if not all of, training camp. And then the Texans may not actually know if he's healthy enough to go. That's the scariest part about the foot injury for Joe Mixon, is that it could linger throughout the course of 2025. It could derail Mixon's situation. And I don't love the backup options behind Joe Mixon. I feel like the Texans did a pretty poor job building out the depth chart behind Mixon. That's the really bad part about this, is the foot injury derails Mixon's 2025, which helps derail the rushing attack for the Houston Texans. Now, the positive here is, yes, Joe Mixon needs some time to get used to his new teammates and to get used to the new offense, but he's also a veteran. He's been around the block. He's operated in a couple of different offenses. It shouldn't be impossible for him to pick up the new offensive scheme from offensive coordinator Nick Caley, and he's got to get used to some of those offensive linemen, but at the same time, he's Joe Mixon. He is one of the true workhorse backs in the National Football League. Only Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry have more touches than him over the past half decade. So he's got the ability to just turn it on as the season gets here. Now, again, it's not great that he's going to miss training camp, but this isn't Joe Mixon is done for the year. This isn't Joe Mixon's missing time in the regular season. This is Joe Mixon's missing a significant portion of training camp and maybe all of training camp, but he could still play week 1 in LA against the Rams. Is that ideal? Obviously not. You'd rather Joe Mixon be able to practice in training camp, get used to the new offense, the new teammates that he has on the offensive side of the ball, and be ready to go. But it's not the worst news in the world. I mean, think about it. There have been times when teams have lost their starting running back in training camp for the year. That's not what this is. But when you have a situation like this, I like to look at it three ways. Three ways. I like to look at it optimistically, I like to look at it pessimistically, and then I like to give my realistic look on this thing. So optimistically, with Joe Mixon's injury, well, the optimistic outlook is Joe Mixon misses a little bit of time. He's able to get in there right before the season starts, and then he hits the ground running here in 2025 and continues to be a workhorse running back for the Houston Texans. That's the most optimistic outcome in this entire situation. It's also, I think, the least likely outcome amongst all of this. Another optimistic way to look at it is, hey, the Houston Texans did go out there and change the makeup of the running back room, adding Nick Chubb to the equation, adding Woody Marks to the equation. Dameon Pierce eventually will practice, and maybe between Marks and Chubb and Pierce, Dare Gumbawale and the rookies from last year, British Brooks and Jawar Jordan, the Texans can mishmash and mush some conglomeration of good enough running back play to hold the fort down while Mixon is ultimately getting healthy enough to play and play consistently for this Texans team. That's the optimistic way to look at it. Very, very rosy outlook there. Here's the pessimistic way you look at Joe Mixon's situation and the Texans' rushing attack. Pessimistically, Joe Mixon's foot injury lingers. It becomes an issue ahead of the season. It affects him during the season at some point, and you do have to turn and rely on the people behind Joe Mixon on the depth chart. Continuing this pessimistic outlook is, well, Nick Chubb hasn't looked good in the first few days of training camp. And I know it's been 4 non-padded days of training camp, but that's not going to make Nick Chubb faster or more agile or look like he's regained athleticism when he puts the pads on. It hasn't looked good athletically for Nick Chubb. I mentioned Dameon Pierce. He hadn't practiced at all in this new offense. And remember, it was tough for him to pick up the offense under Bobby Slowick. His words, not mine. So that's a concern that even when Pierce gets on the field, he's got a whole backlog of offense to learn because he didn't participate in the offseason workouts and he's missing time here in training camp. He's already missed 4 of the 20 practices that they're going to have. A fifth of training camp is behind Dameon Pierce already. If we wanted to continue down the pessimistic route, Woody Marks is more of a receiving back than he is a true running back that you could put in there in the running back 2 spot. And that's kind of how I viewed him coming out, and that's how the draft community viewed Woody Marks coming out. And I know he ended up as the bell cow at USC, but he had the opportunity to be the bell cow for Mississippi State for a few years, and he never went out there and took that opportunity. And he primarily is a receiving back so far in training camp. The one big standout for Woody Marks was a catch out of the slot from the running back position. So that'd be another pessimistic look. Is, hey, Woody Marks can't be the guy because he's more of a receiving back. Dare Ogunbowale's more of a special teamer. British Brooks and Jawar Jordan, yeah, they've had a moment here or there in the first few days of training camp that's looked pretty solid, but it's, a 6th-round pick and undrafted free agent from last year that you'd be relying on. So as you look through those names and you think about the potential negatives to them trying to replace Joe Mixon or fill in for Joe Mixon, if he's down for a couple of weeks with this foot injury popping back up, it gets a little scary. Another pessimistic thing about the Houston Texans rushing attack is the O-line hadn't looked good through the first few days of training camp. Again, that's the real conversation been. It hadn't been in pads. Okay, it hadn't been in pads, hadn't looked good running the football. If it doesn't look good with pads on, that'd be a concern. So it's kind of like a pessimistic concern with an asterisk. Okay, but let's get to the realistic outlook right after I tell you about my friends at The Perfect Gene. Realistically, these are going to be the best jeans that you ever buy. They are comfortable. They are stretchy. They are breathable. And they are very durable as well. I wear mine all the time, and they still look like when I first got them from The Perfect Gene. And you're going to get a discount and free shipping and free exchanges. So try a couple of different styles. I wear the athletic fit, but they've got slim cut. They've got boot cut. Okay. They've got a bunch of different colors. Order a few, figure out what you like. The returns, they're free. The exchanges, they're free. It's no risk. There's no risk to trying on what will be the best jeans that you've ever tried on. So hit that link in the description down below and get you some of the best jeans you will ever have from my friends at The Perfect Gene. Here's my realistic look at the Texans running back situation. Realistically, Joe Mixon is going to need to be very healthy at some point for the Texans to consistently run the football. I do not believe in the depth chart behind Joe Mixon. Dameon Pierce has not picked up the NFL as quickly and consistently as you would have wanted. Nick Chubb looks like a shell of his former self. Woody Marks is a receiving back. Dare Ogunbowale is a special teams back, and I know I liked Jawar Jordan last year, and British Brooks has had a moment here or there. It's just not enough that I feel good about it. The Texans have not invested properly behind Joe Mixon to make you feel confident that they're going to be able to run the football on a consistent basis this year without Joe Mixon. They should have signed a different free agent than Nick Chubb. They should have potentially drafted a different guy than Woody Marks. Now, if Mixon's healthy and Woody Marks is the perfect third down running back complement to him, then boom, they knocked it out of the park. But Mixon's not healthy right now, and we don't know when he's going to be healthy. So realistically, with a little bit of a shade of pessimistically, it feels like the Texans have a decent chance to, at the very least, first see Joe Mixon week 1 of the NFL season and that would be a less than ideal scenario. It's not great that his first time on the field would be against a Rams defense that's actually kind of underrated, and then following that up with a Monday Night Football matchup against a pretty tough Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. That's not ideal to kind of get yourself into football shape because you missed most of training camp with a foot injury. So realistically, it could be a slow start to things for Joe Mixon. The Texans will need Mixon to be able to run the football effectively and consistently. That's my realistic output for the Mixon situation. Where do you fall? You fall into more of the optimism category? You're a little bit more pessimistic, kind of like where I am, or you find yourself somewhere in the middle in the realistic outcome? Let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down there, hit that thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out SNL, myself and Landry Locker, live each and every weekday at 4 p.m., breaking down anything and everything that happens with the Houston Texans and, of course, Houston football. We do all my writing about the Houston Texans. Over 1,000 words basically each day of training camp, giving you the breakdown of what I see when I am there. Appreciate you watching the video. Hopefully, you're optimistic about watching more of these videos and you're not pessimistic about subscribing to this channel. And realistically, I hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.